Hello, I'm going to be talking about fake videos and false flags, or at least the accusation of them. But first, I want to discuss the possibility that I'm being fooled by some sort of mass media campaign or some Western world conspiracy about the evidence coming out of Ukraine with regard to the behaviour of the Russian troops. Several comments have insisted I don't know what I'm talking about. With respect, actually, without respect. I obviously know a damn sight more than my critics. Just because MSNBC are pushing a story doesn't mean it's automatically wrong. It's very likely to be a lie, but, well, even a stopped clock is right twice a day, isn't it? Now, also, I want to discuss the position of some people who aren't saying that the Russians are being very nice, but who are of the opinion that, because there was an armed militia in eastern Ukraine murdering ethnic Russians, then that's a good reason for the Russians to roll in and shoot Ukrainian kids in the head. If that's your take, I'm sorry to say this, but we have nothing to talk about with each other. Just for the information of anyone who hasn't heard of the Azov battalion, it is a bunch of freelance militia, not much controlled by the Ukrainian government until quite recently. And since 2014, when the Russians invaded eastern Ukraine to grab Crimea and started supporting a separatist movement in those two provinces that bordered Russia, the Azov battalion started up in reaction. Definitely a neo-Nazi type of outfit, and it dedicated itself to trying to oust the Russian invaders. To that end, they've been responsible for about 13,000 deaths. So, no doubt, these are not nice guys, but they were fighting a war against an invading enemy, weren't they? At least that's the way they saw it. And up to the new Zelensky administration, the whole of Ukraine was so saturated with corruption, it was pretty well ungovernable. So private militias are bound to start up. Now, in Russia, they also have their neo-Nazi groups. So, this is an Eastern European thing. Anyway, I don't excuse the Azov, but I still don't see this as a good reason for the Russians to march into Ukraine and, do what they're doing. And if you do, well, I don't know why you're watching this channel, because we have no ground in common. None at all. So then you might say, but all those tales of what the Russians did, well, they're just stories to frighten children, aren't they? It's all a load of Ukrainian propaganda and crisis actors, and the Russians are being perfect gentlemen. Look, every country at war with another country accuses their enemy of atrocities. So yes, you have to be careful about that. It was for that reason when news started coming through about conditions in Bucha a couple of days ago, I was so shocked I couldn't do anything. It was terrible, but I didn't try to start making a video because I wanted to find some sort of independent confirmation. Well, that's come through now, because there are photos taken of when the Ukrainian army got back into Bucha, which match up with satellite photos taken while the Russians were still there. Aerial photos taken down, and they match up. Meanwhile, the Russians really are cooking up lies as well. I'll show you a couple of examples. Here's a still from what purports to be a news clip of a reporter describing the mass murders of Ukrainians committed by the Russian army. You can see the titles at the bottom of the screen, which give you the figures quoted by the Ukrainians. It all looks, perfectly reasonable as a news report. And it was so easily done because the reporter's wearing a mask, so you can't see his mouth moving. That'll be important in a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, look at all those bodies behind him and notice the body bag at the front. The plastic has flapped open and the corpse's face is exposed. A few seconds into the video, the corpse pulls the loose bit of bag back over his face. So it's quite obvious that the dead body is a fake, and obviously all the rest are fakes too. This is one of the tweets that accompanied this video. And, something like, "You had one job and look what a mess you made of it." So this is all Ukrainian fakery. Or is it? Well, it's certainly a fake, but it's definitely not Ukrainian. This is the original video. It's a report about a climate demonstration in Vienna, and the reporter is talking German. That's where the mask comes in handy. And he's talking about the climate activists who are pretending to be dead bodies behind him. The voice you hear is the voice of this reporter filing a piece about Ukraine from his hotel room, by the looks of things. As you see, the titles at the bottom of the screen were superimposed later. Now, here's another video showing a lot of terrified citizens running away from something. When the video pulls out, you can see a film crew shouting lights, camera, action, and then telling the people to run. Have you ever been to Birmingham in the English Midlands? Well, I have, and that's Birmingham. When that started circulating as a Russian lie about Ukrainian false flags, the maker of that scene tweeted out the following: "This is unbelievable. Actual behind-the-scenes footage from us filming our crowd scenes for my indie sci-fi movie Invasion Planet Earth in central Birmingham in 2013." And that's been on the internet since 2013. And then he says it's apparently being used in Russia for propaganda. Okay, now, both of these were pretty realistic, and there are many more of that sort of thing, or even not. Do you remember the MSM News, which featured mostly peaceful demonstrations exploding in fireballs behind, CBS reporters or something? And here the reporters, they were showing the truth, and they were saying the opposite and expecting you to believe it. And the problem is that some did. So I understand why many people feel they can't rely on anything. But in this case, with dated satellite imagery and stuff on the ground, well, this has to be the real deal. So, having established that, the next question is, why? Why are the Russians acting like this? They must know that they're going to be found out. They must know that social media has made such atrocities next to impossible to hide. They must also know that this would inspire the Ukrainians to fight even harder. After all, if you're going to be shot, or, I've also heard, shipped out as slaves if you surrender, why surrender? So, look, I could almost understand an undertrained conscript who's lost half his mates in an ambush, venting his fury on a man on a bicycle who happens to be cowering behind a wall when he comes upon him. But what I don't understand is why that conscript's commanding officer allowed him and his comrades to commit such acts. It just defies belief. And there does seem to be a deliberation about it. As a matter of fact, I'm sort of asking round among friends and people I know if they know any psychologists who might be able to explain this to me. But meanwhile, I don't know. But I can't, well, I'm trying to work out what the point is. And the only thing I can think of so far is that they're repeating the strategy they were following with the Katyn massacre in Poland in 1940. When the Soviets invaded Poland, the Russians assembled 22,000 Polish officers, and that includes army officers and police and intelligentsia, 22,000 of them. Some were already arrested and imprisoned, but the majority were taken to the Katyn forest and just shot there. 22,000 of them. And the Germans found the mass graves, and when they put the ironically enough, when the Germans, the Nazis, put out the information about this, nobody believed them. The Russians, of course, denied it. As late as 2004, the Russian Federation finally admitted it happened but refused to acknowledge it as a war crime. In 2014, they did acknowledge it as a war crime but said it was the fault of the Soviets, so they weren't to be held accountable. However, for years, the Russians called it the Katyn lie. And I'll bet you if they get away with this stuff in Ukraine, they'll be calling it the Bucha lie or whatever. This is what they'll say about it. It was a lie. And I'm hearing some talk of another place called Borodyanka, which could be even worse. So look, this is just heartbreaking, horrible situation. But as it is, the Russians are to blame. I don't care what might have sparked it off. That is totally irrelevant. The Russians are acting like beasts now. And all you people who say, well, what about this and what about that? There's no whataboutery about it. They're shooting men, women and children, and there's increasing proof of that. So, as I say, you say I don't know what I'm talking about. I say you don't know what you're talking about. And, that's where we are. Right, now, I am Graniopteryx. I am to be found on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I let you know when I've uploaded a video on my Twitter, Parler and Gab platforms, and there I am at Graniopteryx. Please like this video, as horrible as the subject is. Share it. People have to know about this. And let's see what else. Yes, support my channel if you can, and I'll see you next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.